Hi everyone, I'm Sobia. I live in East Tennessee. I have been gardening for the last 18 years. I would like to thank Linda for inviting me to do a tour of my garden, and I'm excited to show everyone around. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and join me. Here is an overview of the house and the garden down below. We built the house 9 years ago and the garden is only 7 years young. When we started, it was a plain lot. Much like this, there was no vegetation, so essentially we have started with a blank slate, and last 7 years we have been adding a number of trees and shrubs, and we have created focal points like pathways and a water feature, and secluded gardens. Today I am giving you a tour of the main garden, so let me take you down there. I have planted a year-round garden which provides interest and color in all 4 seasons. So for that reason I have planted a number of conifers like spruce trees, junipers and cedars. They provide interest all year round. And I also love Japanese maples, so I have incorporated lots of Japanese maples also. Over at this edge I have 3 of the Japanese maples. This one is Orange Dream Japanese maple. I love its green bark and trunk, and I have pruned it over the years to show its beauty. That is also one of my design style, to sort of trim out the branches and let the structure show. Then in between the conifers and Japanese maples, I plant annuals and perennials, and I like to accentuate the shapes and forms of the plants. I incorporate color in my garden through foliage. So over here you would see the blues and the yellows and different tones of greens. So for example, the blue color comes from the blue star juniper, yellow comes from the golden mop false cypress. Right beside it is Alberta Spruce topiary, behind is little giant Arbor Vitae in a different green color. This guy is Dwarf Scotch Pine, and it gives beautiful purple flowers in the spring that looks like cones, and I have trimmed the branches to show its architectural structure. There are 2 Alberta spruce trees flanking on the both sides of the steps that take us down to the swimming pool area. And this spring I have shaped them into spiral topiaries after watching lots of YouTube videos. Then at the base of them I provide seasonal color with changing annuals every season. On the both sides of the steps I have English hollies. I'm trying to shape them into topiaries, and they have been proving quite a challenge for me. Right beside is a weeping Norway spruce tree. It has a beautiful whimsical structure that I love. My kids think that it looks like a character from Dr. Seuss' book, and I totally agree. It needs virtually no care. Another of recurring theme in my garden is the use of ground cover. Over here I'm using Stonecrop Sedum to soften the hardscape. It prevents soil erosion also, and they also keep the weeds down. Here's the other English holly that I've been trying to shape up. As we come up to the steps, we are looking right into the garden with the fountain in the middle of our view. and I just love the site. The steps on this site are flanked by two giant Arbor Vitaes. They are naturally round structure without any pruning. We are back up in the main garden, and moving forward you would see in this side of the bed more of the conifers and Japanese maples. You would see reds and blues and greens and chartreuse, and notice how it is so colorful without the use of any flowers. This chartreuse color tree is a full moon Japanese maple. It is very slow growing. This is one of my favorites. It's a very small tree, and underneath I have planted some season color in the form of cabbages and garden mums. Again, I have shaped up this Alberta Spruce into 3 balls, gum balls. Behind is a blue Colorado spruce. It provides a nice blue background. This is Bloodgood Japanese maple, and I have pruned it every year to show its trunks and limbs, and that is my style. I love to see the trunks as much as the foliage and flowers. I think the trunks and the branches have more to offer, so I highlight them. Some autumn Joy Sedum with its burgundy color. This blue foliage at the edge of the bed is lamb's ears. It provides a very nice silvery bluish contrast, and it spreads very fast. I have made multiple plants with just 2 of the plants that I initially planted. Behind them I have placed fall mums for some season color, some more of the conifers and Japanese maples. Now, conifers are easy to grow plants. They grow slow, which means less or no pruning. They provide texture and color and form in the garden. I'm using Stonecrop Sedum as a ground cover to give a nice contrast against the blues and greens, and also to keep the weeds down. Over here I have one of the 4 Washington hawthorns. Hawthorns give very beautiful red berries in the winter. All the pathways and the edging of the garden is being done by my husband. I plan and design, but he brings it into reality. This pathway leads us out from the main garden. I have another of the Washington hawthorn in this bed. And more of the Scotch Pine. This area is a little different than the other section. I have let the ground cover grow and take control on this side. It does keep the weeds down, and also less mulching required. I also like to put containers and pots in my landscape. Sometimes I plant in them, and sometimes I just let them be, just as a design element. And here is another of the ground cover in my landscape. This is creeping thyme. It is a perennial, and it gives very nice purple flowers in the summer, and it is a steppable, which means you can walk on it without any damage to the plant. I have a resting area under the Magnolia tree back there. Another of my favorite Japanese maple. There are these two emerald green Arbor Vitaes that got damaged a couple of years ago in a hard winter. I have pruned their green branches out and I have shaped them into tiers, and I'm hopeful that in a couple of years they will recover and look much better. In the center of this bed there is Korean fir with its blue-gray color, and the needles are white from underside and gives a very nice contrast. In the spring it gives gorgeous purple cones. Okay, so now we are moving back to this bed. Again, I have flanked this entry, this pathway, with two Alberta spruces that I am going to turn into spiral topiaries come next spring. Then I have a few magnolia trees also. They are the dwarf kinds. They are not messy like your usual big magnolia trees. This yellow is a Skyline Spruce. I love its yellow color and form. You can see this archway. My Washington Hawthorns from the back. I love the glossy green leaves of magnolia trees. And I wanted to show you this emerald green Arbor Vitae. It got damaged a couple of winters ago, and it was a painstaking job to trim out all the brown needles, but I wanted to give it a second chance. So I trimmed all the brown needles and all the brown branches out, and this year it is looking much better. The top looks very nice, and again it is providing a architectural vintage in my garden. Here's the back view of the Bloodgood Japanese maple that I showed you earlier. I love looking through its branches. Going back into the main garden, we have created an archway using this weeping blue Atlas cedar. We have been training it into a doorway. Coming in, we are looking right to the fountain once again and our patio. There are lavenders planted on the both sides of the pathway. I love the soothing sound of running water in the garden, and the fountain is a favorite resting spot for the birds that come visit us. I have a hydrangea bush over in this bed. In the corner of this bed, I have two more of the Japanese maples, and as you go around, I have two of Washington Hawthorn. I trim these trees every spring to make them light and to let their structure show. There are some hostas planted at the base of the fence, and then this walkway cuts through the middle of the bed to take us to the front of the house rather than going around the bed. I have two more of Washington Hawthorns in this bed, and as I was telling you earlier, they produce berries and that turn red in the winter. And when all leaves fall down in the winter, these trees are full of red berries, and I can see them right through my windows. I love looking at them from inside my living room. These two Alberta spruces, they are dwarf kind. I rescued them from a garden store. They were on clearance but they were pretty damaged. So I nursed them back into life, and I have shaped them into small topiaries. Let me take you to the patio. Here we are at the steps of the patio. Right now I have decorated it with a fall color, some mums, and ornamental cabbages and kale and sunflowers, pumpkins. Here is my collection of topiaries. I have just started this year, and like many of you, Linda Vater has inspired me as well to start my own. I have over here a Eugenia topiary and lemon cypress beside it, some boxwood and English ivy. Then this year I have also started moss containers. I have made these containers from moss out of my own garden, and over here I have combined two of my passions, moss and miniature gardens, into this container. I can see it from inside my living room, and I like watching over it. Over here I am growing some hens and chicks in this driftwood container. I like using whimsical planters. This brings us to the end of our garden tour. Thank you so much everyone for joining and for watching. And if you want to know about any of the plants in my landscape, please comment below, or you can also connect with me on my Instagram page at my greenscape. I would love for you to join. Thanks again.